Welcome everyone to Building Real-Time Digital Twins with IBM Maximo and ArcGIS Indoors. We're thrilled today to be joined by our guest speaker, Gerry from Jacobs, as well as Dave as a part of our team. I will pass things over to Gerry first to introduce himself.
Hi, thank you for having me. As you can see, my name is Gerardo, but I go for Gerry, make it easier on everybody. I've been working with FME since 2007, covered multiple industries, water, energy, environmental, defense, multiple industries, utilities, you name it. We've done a fair share of work with FME.
Fantastic. And Dave.
Hey, my name is Dave Campanis. I'm a customer support technician here at Safe Software, been here for 20 years, and I specialize in things like BIM and Maximo and 3D, etc.
Excellent. All right, before we dive into today's content, if you are newer to our webinar platform Livestorm, I do have a few tips to share here. If you have any audio or video issues during the webinar, you can click that help button on the bottom left. It has 4 simple steps to take. You can share your emoji reactions with us during the webinar. You'll see that react button on the bottom middle. We love to see those as we go along. We do have a poll coming up in a moment, so keep an eye on that polls tab. Questions. We also will have some dedicated time at the end to answer some questions live. So please don't hesitate to get any questions that you might have into that tab as we go along here. We might even get to 1 or 2 in the questions tab as well before we get to that segment. And then lastly, our chat. Keep letting us know where you're tuning in from. Share any comments with us there. Awesome. Okay. So from here, I'm going to take us through a brief agenda of what to expect in today's webinar, and then we'll go through introduction and get over to our exciting Jacobs use case. So yeah, we'll be kicking things off with a brief introduction to today's topic and what is FME. So between Dave and I will be hosting that segment. From there, Dave's going to take us through a look at IBM Maximo FME transformer updates. So some exciting things there. And then to follow, Gerry will be taking us through Jacobs' use of FME. And you'll see, I won't read through this whole list, but a lot of exciting segments and information within that section. And then to wrap us up, Dave is going to be taking us through a bit of a how-to demo on using FME and IBM Maximo. We'll conclude and provide you with some resources and next steps. And then, like I mentioned, we'll be having that live Q&A session to follow. Okay, at this point, I will prompt our presenters to turn off their webcams just so we can save on some bandwidth for the remainder. And we will head into our poll here. So I will go ahead and publish that under our polls tab. We'd love to know how far along you are in your digital twin journey. So we'll give everyone a few moments now to let us know there under the polls tab. Awesome, it looks like people are placing their answers now. Excellent. Okay, it looks like we've got most results now. I think it's safe to say though, Dave and Gerry, would you agree, regardless of where you are in your digital twin journey, whether you're just exploring or maybe you've already created a digital twin, you should be able to get a lot of value and inspiration out of today's use case.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, perfect. So we'll move on now. Yeah, if you want to keep letting us know in the poll there, feel free. Okay, so I will kick us off here with our introduction. Today, we are really excited to see how Jacobs broke down data silos to create a dynamic real-time view of their operations using FME. And our aim today is really to provide you with some inspiration on what's possible when creating your own digital twins. Real-time integration empowers teams like Jacobs to make faster, smarter decisions by connecting the right people to the right data and at the right time. So really, real-time data integration is becoming more and more crucial the faster paced our world seems to move. And of course, as you all know, I'm sure, when systems can't talk to each other, even simple tasks can become super inefficient and the bigger picture can get harder to see. So we hope to address that with the solution of FME here today. With FME, you can sync your data, simplify collaboration, and automate updates. All right, so now we'd love to go over a bit of key terminology in case you aren't familiar with all of these systems and terms. So from here, I will pass things over to Dave to take us through.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, some of the key terminologies. Digital twin says a live virtual model of physical spaces and assets. Yeah, a digital twin can basically be any reproduction of your actual site or information in the computer, from hydrology to building models. But basically, the key to the digital twin is to keep it updated with the latest data. IBM Maximo, that's a product from an asset management product from IBM for managing and maintaining physical assets. ArcGIS Indoors is an add-on to ArcGIS Pro that lets you basically take your GIS and mapping to the indoor spaces and manage, and actually help manage your indoor spaces as well. BIM, or Building Information Modeling, is basically any sort of digital process used to help design and manage buildings. COBie is a kind of specialized schema, I guess, if you will, of the information that's required for construction and management of the building afterwards. And it comes in a variety of formats. It can be added into your Revit data, into your IFC data. It can be as simple as a spreadsheet, a bunch of Excel files. And finally, Survey123, it's a mobile app from, I believe, ArcGIS to collect field data through forms, web forms. So it's transformer updates. So we recently updated our Maximo transformers to add a couple of authentication types. Originally, we just had the Maximo authentication. Now we've added LDAP basic and LDAP form authentication. It pretty much looks the same in the transformer. You just add your name and password and pick the one you want, but it does run differently behind the scenes. And also stored queries. We added the stored queries to the Maximo object creators. This uses, I'll show you more in the demos, but basically you don't have to use the where clause. You can just pick a stored query that's available in Maximo. And it gives you access to more sophisticated querying mechanisms. Okay, and this is our FME as an enterprise integration platform. We have three basic tools. We have FME Form, which is FME Form is where you build your application workflow using the transformers in a canvas, and you build it up visually. You can run the workflows from Form, sort of on an ad hoc basis, but ultimately to share them amongst your enterprise, you'd want to then publish these workflows up to FME Flow. This is kind of our enterprise solution. It's web-based, and once the workflows are being uploaded to FME Flow, you can have your people in your company, you can run those workspaces through web apps, you can automate them to run on schedules or run in response to events, etc. And then finally, we have FME Realize, which is a new product this year, and that allows you to visualize your data in an augmented reality platform and interact with it to a limited extent. And just blow our own horn a bit, we've got an unrivaled data support here in FME. I believe it's over 450 different formats in a variety areas.
I think it's over 500 now. It's crazy.
500? Yeah, it's a lot. Who can keep track anymore?
It grows every day.
As well as we talk to any web API made. So that could be thousands, really. So yeah, I think we're pretty much your one-stop shop for data access. Okay, and I'll turn it over to Gerry to tell us about Jacob's results with integrating BIM GIS and Maximo with FME.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just need a verification that you can see my screen.
Yeah, looks great.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, thank you again for having me here. It's a pleasure to come and talk to you today about BIM and GIS integration. Basically, we're going to be talking about a use case that we did with FME. However, it's important to understand that even though I'm the one presenting, it was a team effort where Jacobs was the prime for this client, and we did a fair portion of BIM, GIS, and Maximo. Procon Consulting also helped with the BIM and extending the ArcGIS Indoor solution. And at this point, we found out that Union was also supporting the client with a wider scope. So their institutional knowledge of IT and the way how they were configuring FME Flow deployments was crucial for the success of this project. But it's important for you to know who's behind the solution. But in all honesty, we're not here to talk about us today. We're here to talk about what you're going to be able to do after this call. So I'm assuming that everybody here in the call, more than likely a big majority GIS professionals. However, all of us that you see in this particular slide have a role to play. GIS professionals, IT professionals, organizational leaders, system integrators, FME developers, BIM developers, project managers, all of you, novice to experts, have a role to play. And in fact, you are the true hero for this presentation. What does that mean? That means that you probably have Maximo or other systems, or you're undergoing or thinking of or considering going through a digital transformation, or you already have a digital twin and want to discover what else you can do with it. Or simply put, you're here to discover one more thing that would take you to that art of the possible journey to find what else you can do with FME. But before we go into those technical details, let's talk a little bit about digital transformation. So glad that we're here. Digital transformation. It became very apparent to us that in order to have a successful digital transformation, you really need a really good digital advisory board. So why is this so important, you might ask? Well, this is something that we need to start building the use case for your client or organization. It'll help you come up with the business case, define deliverables and KPIs, choose the appropriate technology. A lot of people fail on this part. Now, moving on from the technology, you can identify the champions that are going to take the technology to the next level. You connect your data sets and develop the solutions. And then we go to a point of elevating the solution. So why is this important? Well, simply put, 70% of organizations that want to shortcut this process fail. You might wonder, wow, this is a big statistics. I agree with you. The reason for that is that for the most part, the people trying to implement this by themselves, lack of stakeholder support, try to do too much too fast, or focus on the technology first. Remember what I said, everybody, there's a big portion of it that focus on the technology first, and therefore things don't work as expected. The key message here is that by this digital advisory board, we're going to understand how what we're trying to achieve affects people and process. The technology is the easy portion that we need to take care of. Now, I've got good news for you. If you're looking for guidance on how to successfully implement a digital twin, Jacobs will be releasing here shortly in August a white paper titled Digital Twins, Turning Data into Strategic Insights for Organizational Success. The AEC industry need this significantly. Let me tell you why. This is the second staggering statistic that I'm going to share with you today, which was mind-boggling to me. 95% of the data goes unused. In my head, I thought the culprits were the same. Data siloed, formatting compatibility, data sharing restrictions, very poor data quality and management, limited or no data literacy, or resistance to change. But as I was discussing with my coworkers, I found out something that blew my mind. And he said, Gerry, we are very focused as consultants to focus on getting and fulfilling our requirements for our clients, meaning we are so intense and purposeful to get to that deliverable, but we stop there. So it becomes we deliver a BIM model or a CAD file or a GIS file, and that is it. So what happens afterwards? Well, that digital file goes and gets trapped in another digital silo, which is a problem because the people or systems that need it can't reach it or don't know anything about it. So my question to you, or my challenge to you today, is why stop there? So today we're going to talk how we broke down the silos, we connected the assets and made them actionable with FME, and all of this without writing a single line of code. Let's get to it. So what you see on screen is a $1 billion campus renovation project that we had for a confidential client. It was a multi-year project. And in addition to that, it also had multiple contractors. And as you can see, they had asset information scattered through multiple systems. Keep in mind that none of these systems are built to talk to each other. So we have a big problem to tackle. This is where the digital advisory board comes in and guide you to success. Luckily for us, our client already had the key pieces of technology that we needed. In this case, we're going to talk a little bit about ArcGIS Indoors as the digital twin platform that we needed. So it's not that we need it, it's the tool that was appropriate for the client. So why was it important? Well, the client had specific requirements. The client wanted it to be mobile accessible, it had 2 and 3D interaction, and it was FedRAMP certified. The beauty of this is that once we are in Esri ecosystems, we can leverage other Esri tools and further enhance the indoor integration. And now that we've covered the pieces of a digital transformation, let's talk a little bit about the solution architecture. So in a nutshell, this is what it looked like conceptually. We had folders with documents in Google Drive, in geometries that we're going to push into ArcGIS Indoors, and the COBie data, we're going to bring them into Maximo and somehow enable bilateral communication between those systems. In reality, this is what happened. Boquin Consulting was able to push all the Revit data into ArcGIS Indoors. And by building survey forms in Survey 1 to 3, we were able to address multiple different business workflows that needed to be addressed. In some cases, we needed to update information about an asset that was missing in Indoors. So for example, if you walked to a transformer and Indoors was showing that it was missing a serial number, if we visually see it, we can trigger a form and push an update to the appropriate systems. What happens, how is it that we were able to make this work? Where luckily, we had pre-built a webhook in FME Flow, and we have requested the Survey 1 to 3 developers to attach that webhook into the Survey 1 to 3 forms. And what we were able to accomplish with that is that we created a communication path between Survey 1 to 3 and FME. So once our surveyors or our assessors were walking through the building and they found something that was wrong, they would report the changes that needed to be implemented, hit submit, and once the submission button was clicked, the Survey 1 to 3 form would send a message to FME Flow. The technical term for that message is a payload. But once it was in FME form, we were able to pass it into the workbench and determine if the updates needed to go to ArcGIS Indoors or Maximo, or if we needed to append records in a Google Sheet, or if we needed to save documents or pictures into Google Drive. The beauty of this is that the way how we did this, we were able to pass rows to the Google Sheet while linking the pictures and documents to that particular row. The purpose of this Google Sheet was to communicate with the BIM modelers that there was a discrepancy between the model in ArcGIS Indoors that they can take, review, verify, and all of a sudden, this became a self-healing model. So what a beautiful way to curate data, right? Now, with this slide, I'm going to summarize a couple of things. There's a lot of technical terms, but I'm going to try to summarize it as quick as possible. The key things that you need to know to make this work is you need to clearly understand JSON. Remember, we were talking about Survey 1 to 3 submitting a message. Well, it comes in the form of JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it's a way to pass information, unstructured information, to another system. For that, you need to understand what type of JSON transformers FME has available to read and to write information. As we were developing the workflow, we figured out that in the JSON message generated from the Survey 123 app, we can harvest the information that contained the name of the form. This was crucial for us because it allowed us to determine what pieces of information were going to be sent to a different part in the workflow. Basically, we were able to route the process depending on the name of the form. The other benefit of getting the information from the JSON is that it provided the pieces of information that we needed to read the GIS data and update it fast, because we did not have to use a traditional GIS reader to read the whole entire GIS. The JSON gave us the global ID of the feature that we needed to pass that information through the system. It gave us a token, the authentication token to get to the feature and only read that feature. So the data reads were very fast. Same with the updates. Now, in terms of Maximo, we had two things to address. We needed to address things for assets and work orders as well. So for that, we use two transformers, the Maximo Object Querier and the Maximo Object Updater. We had a couple of instances where we had to work around some of these transformers because some of them are blocking transformer. And what that means is that it performs an operation, but you lose all the other data that comes before it. So by setting variables before blocking transformers and then setting a variable retriever after that blocking transformer, we were able to put the pieces of information that we needed so that we can feed it to the appropriate Maximo transformers. The other thing that I have over here that's important is that we are able to read JSON, but the Maximo Object Updater needs to have the data that needs to be updated, packaged in a JSON format as well. So understanding JSON is key. Lastly, in terms of the Google portion of the workflow, we had to work with IT to create a Google Service account and set it up so that we can configure the Google connector to read from a specific folder structure without having to navigate an entire system. This enabled us to have fast uploads to the system as well. In a summary, very quickly, this encompasses a high-level summary of what we've talked about in the past slides. We have the webhook over here that listens to the JSON message, and we pass it to the workbench. And we have email notifications for the different scenarios that we were trying to troubleshoot. We were trying to understand when when Survey 123 sent a message, we wanted to know what message it was. We also needed to understand if the workflow failed and why. So we've added this notification system over here. And lastly, the message that we had over here at the bottom was letting us know what object had been updated, what was the original value, and what was the value that it got updated to. Very quickly. But you might wonder, so why did this work? So let's talk a little bit about infrastructure, because this is something that is never talked about in organizations, or very little. Typical scenario is that more often than not, any organization is only going to have one environment to develop, one FME flow to develop everything. So this presents a huge challenges. It's basically, if not done correctly, it can present a recipe for unwanted surprises. In the case of this client, they were able to provide a development environment, a user acceptance testing, and a production environment. So why is this so important? Well, it gave us a lot of flexibility. It allowed us to develop, enhance, and maintain solutions through the duration of the application. So it's okay. But why? Tell me more. Well, simply put, if this doesn't land the plane, it's gonna hard to land it a different way. Having these multiple environments allowed us to continue development while isolating changes. We were able to figure out where bugs happen. It allowed us to improve on the quality assurance and still maintain a continuous integration and continuous development. Several environments came up with other things that we needed to work on. So each environment needed to be configured differently. So security testing was key for all this setup. We did some more performance testing, and we also implemented some strategies that would help us roll back and recover if something went wrong in the development side of things. All right. So summing up the best practices. Leverage what you have. When you publish to Flow, you can work on your workbench and then leverage deployment parameters to send the appropriate workflow to the appropriate environment. In our case, we requested to have version control enabled in FME Flow, like I mentioned before. If we did something that broke the development that we were trying to do, we can simply go back to the history in FME Flow, download the previous version, and then we were back and running again to continue our development. Luckily, we didn't have to use this very often. Lastly, I'm asking you to please leverage automations and develop workbenches to where you can parameterize them so that you're able to think and scale. So think about it this way. If we were to add another project in ArcGIS Indoors, how fast are you going to be able to become operational? With an approach like this, odds are very quickly. Last but not least, this is something that we do internally at Jacobs. Even though you're an expert, please request a meeting with your counterparts to review that your work is done correctly. I had a pleasure to collaborating with our counterpart from Avinion, Vladimir Boykodich. Him and I reviewed the workbenches. We told each other what the pieces of the workbench was doing, and we made it a better product. And now that we've covered everything, let's take a quick peek at the solution itself. So like I mentioned before, this is a confidential client, so I'm very limited as far as what I can show you, but in the screen, you can see this is a screenshot of what ArcGIS Indoors looks like. In this case, we have the user click on an asset, which enabled to see some metadata of it. And then by the three dots over here, you are able to pick whatever form you're trying to submit. Remember, we had different workflows to submit Survey 123 forms. And once you select one, the form becomes available to you. You fill it out and you click submit. Key takeaways. I wanted to leave you with this in case you missed something I said, or if there was something too technical to understand. So the key takeaways for you here are FME allowed us to develop an integration framework that was not only effective, but maintainable. We heavily leveraged bookmarks and documented the workbenches so that if we needed to add more people to the project or move responsibilities, that person that was coming behind us was able to understand what we had done because of the level of documentation. But going back to the integration framework, we were able to reduce the amount of manual handoffs, reducing errors, and connecting the data almost in real time. The best practices discussed are going to help you reduce a significant amount of risk and enable you to have a quicker rollback time. Lastly, remember when I talked about at the beginning about digital transformation, we started with the human. So FME allowed us to empower people with real connected data. Lastly, I'm encouraging you to challenge the status quo. Next step for you, my call to action is gain some inspiration of what we discussed about, figure out ways to get more of the data that you already know. Leverage any tips and lessons discussed. And if you get stuck, feel free to reach out. Not only to me, but Jacobs has a global presence and we should be able to get you with the appropriate person if needed. Thank you so much. Back to you.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Gerry. Really appreciate you taking the time to share Jacob's use case today. And we hope that the whole audience has gotten a lot of value and inspiration from it. Yeah, I've got Gerry's email once again on the screen here. I know he was just sharing it there as well, in case you would like to get in touch or have any follow-up questions. But of course, we will have the live Q&A at the end here. So please, if you had any questions that you have yet to drop into that questions tab, please feel free. And with that, I will pass things back over to Dave for our next section here.
Thank you. I'm just going to show basically a quick demo on how to use the Maximo transformers Gerry was talking about within FME. Not super in depth, but just give you a taste of what they can do. Okay, demo. Let me just share my screen. There we go. Okay, so we have three basic Maximo transformers available within FME. These are FME hub transformers. They're they're what we call a custom transformer. They're made up of other transformers. And these ones were originally developed both as a solution and as a learning tool. So when the transformers are placed within your workbench, they are placed as embedded, which means that they can be edited and they're all documented. So basically, I'm trying to not only give you something to solve your problem right away, but they're fully modifiable to change it to adapt to your environment, or go further and create something cooler if you want. Today we're going to look at the querying and the updating. I have another transformer to create new records. That one might have been a little misguided, since Maximo is quite a complex schema, and you probably are not going to just create from FME your entire Maximo schema, but if you want to, it's available. But we're going to concentrate on the ones people actually use here. So we're going to look at start off with the Maximo Object Querier. So this is the basic settings of the querier. We have a Maximo host to point to. We have object query with a choice between asset, service, request, and work order. We have query type, and we can either do OSC, so LC where clause, save query name, or a list of saved queries, which we'll get into in a little bit. In this case, I'm just using a basic, very simple OSLC query on the asset number. So I'm requesting the information for a particular asset. Include response JSON. Now, normally, like when we send a request to Maximo, we get back a JSON package, and we interpret that for you to turn it into proper attributes and everything. But we can also have the option to save this JSON string, and that's useful when you're building your own package, whether it's for an update or even a create if you want to get that ambitious. This way you can examine the JSON definition of that feature for Maximo and create your own JSON to match that structure. We have 3 authorization types: Maximo native, LDAP form, and LDAP basic. All 3 of them use username and password. It's just how they work on the back end. So you don't really have to worry about that. And then protocol, whether you're talking to a secure server or not. In this case, we're not. So if I run that query, see we get a feature back. We have the MX object JSON. That shows you, again, structure of the whole feature there. But the key thing that comes back from this querier is, well, all of the information, if you want the information, but we also have, just click on this and scroll down here, this href. Now this href, that is the key to the feature. That is the, okay, each feature in Maximo has its own unique URL that you can use to talk to it. And this is that URL, and that's the key. Once you get this key, you can communicate directly back and forth with that object to get the information from the object or set the information on that object. Okay. So getting back to workspace, now we've looked at the object query. That's the basic OSLC mode. The problem with OSLC queries is they're not kind of standard. Let's see if we can, there's a page here that defines them, and it's particular to IBM, and it's not what everybody is kind of used to using. But the cool thing is Maximo has, there we go. We go into Maximo here. We have these saved queries. So you can build a query within Maximo. And we will look at some of those saved queries. And we will look at assets with devices. There we go. And you notice this query, it shows you on the bottom here, this is built with your standard SQL that pretty much everyone understands. So you can build much more complex queries in SQL than you can build with an OSLC. So a lot of people prefer to use these pre-built queries. And we see assets with devices. Good, we've got the query name. Can we just go and plug that into our workspace? Short answer is no. The name of the query that we get from Maximo is not the same as the name that shows up on that screen. So in this object querier, I have it set up to give me a list of the saved query names. So this will pull for all of the assets, the save queries that are associated with assets. This will bring up a list of the save query names, just so we can see what they're actually called. This is something you would use at your workspace design stage, not as a regular basis. But here we can see, well, we have our titles, and we're looking for assets with devices. Okay, that's our title. And now we see here, that is the actual name of that query. So once we have this, now we're ready to go with the save query. So if we go back, we go down to the third one, and here we have that stored query set in the where clause, or the where clause space. Everything else is the same. And from this, we look at it, we get our 5 devices. If we scooch back to Maximo, and we click on assets with devices, we have the 5. So we're basically getting the same records in both by hitting that save query. Okay, so that is those are your basic modes for the Maximo object querier. Now, to put that in a process, we have here also the Maximo object updater. This is a bit simpler. It simply takes that href I was telling you about, that existing object URL, that's the key. But we need that information. We also need the JSON that you wanted, the JSON package you want to send it to do the updates. If you want, it can also create, like add a thumbnail image to that Maximo record, or you can use it to add attachments to that Maximo record as well. So in the case of Gerry's system, where say you have COBie data, you've created taken COBie data, created Maximo, but say in that COBie data, a lot of times you'll have PDF information like on the various assets as to warranties and all that sort of information. If you have those PDFs, you can actually attach that into your Maximo database with the updater as well. And then those are stored and will be accessible from Maximo. So just a little bit of extra stuff you do there. So I'm going to just show a quick demo of this in operation. So if I scoot back to Maximo, and we're just going to look at all assets. This is really simple. I just took the first one that you can see. So that's 131.150. It's a breaker set. Its present status is set to operating. We want to change that to not ready. Say this is not ready. This is not working anymore. So let me just enable that. So we are going to send that JSON package. Now to build a JSON package that we're sending, we have this JSON templater transformer. And this allows you to just build a little JSON package. Now, the cool thing about Maximo is that when you're sending an update package, you do not need to send the definition of the entire feature to redo that. No, you only need to send the definition of the properties you are modifying. So in this case, we're just modifying status and status description. The Maximo JSON is pretty simple. There's not a lot of nesting. It's very simple. In this case, I'm saying set the status, and we're going to take it from the FME attribute status and the FME attribute status description. We're going to take from actual FME attributes from the original feature, and here in an attribute manager, go down here, that is where we're just modifying these things to not ready. So if I run this, okay, so we got a nice healthy update there. Let's go back to Maximo and see what that looks like. So here we have our status is set to operating. I'm just going to go back and force a refresh on this. And now we see the status is set to not ready. So that's a pretty straightforward update. Again, this is only, well, technically 2 properties that we're changing, but it works quite well. One other thing I would like to point out, transformers, especially the querier. Now, I'm going to go into the querier design here a little bit, and you can see that it's all well documented on how it works, but there's a set of user parameters here. If I edit those, and it says object to query here, and this is kind of the key one. These These are the default APIs that I'm using within Maximo. So to talk to assets, I'm using MX API asset, and then we have service requests and work orders. Now, I've been told that generally when people set up their own Maximos, they are supposed to create their own APIs. You can copy these and adjust them as necessary. If you have created your own APIs, this is where that you can simply come in and change this value to the name of the API that you are using to modify assets. This would be the name of the API if you created one to do service requests and work orders. So simple change here, nothing else should change.
Actually, Dave, we were able to take the knowledge that you provided when you were showing us how this was built, and we were able to modify the API to hit other Maximo tables that we needed to customize to read the pieces of information that we were missing. So understanding how to build that API HTTP caller, and by reading the IBM documentation, we were able to figure that out. So it's very useful to have a technology so flexible that will allow that level of customization.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, it does make that worthwhile. And like I said, these are placed by default as embedded custom transformers. So you are, not only are you able to modify them, you are encouraged to modify them to best suit your purposes, right? And again, I'm always available for if you need any further information that's not provided. I'm always happy to help out there. Yeah, and I guess the last thing, where to get these, they should be available on the quick add. If we go Maximo, there we go. But they're also available from FME Hub. So if you go to FME Hub, you type in Maximo, and we have the object creator. These ones are for on-premises Maximo. We also have 3 slightly different ones that use an API key for the authorization that will to work with the SaaS Maximo. And then finally, we have a Maximo SaaS connection straight. And I believe that is pretty much it for the demos. So I just have here, for those folks just looking at the slides later, just a quick screenshots of the querying and the updating slides. So I guess in conclusion, we've seen from Gerry how real-time digital twins empower smarter data-driven facility management. We know that FME connects to Maximo, ArcGIS Indoors, BIM, and all sorts of things, including Survey 123. You can use Flow to automate your workflows, to synchronize systems, and enable the live data streams. And yeah, thank you so much to Gerry from Jacobs for showing how, quite frankly, it works in the real world. I mean, I sit at my desk here and I create some of these transformers, and it's all good fun and everything, but we don't know how well it works until somebody uses it for real. Yeah, just a little bit more about safe software. We've in 128 countries. We've been around for 30 years. We work with a lot of people. We have a lot of partners, and we have a lot of users. Resources. Okay, so I showed you where you can get on FME Hub how to query for Maximo. Well, there also is the OSL. See, I think that this will be a clickable link, hopefully. If you're using the OSLC queries, we have a link here to the query reference on IBM's documentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is clickable. If you go under apps and then handouts, you can download the deck and click through any links in the deck, just so everyone knows.
That's perfect. I find it like I can work my way around SQL. I find this OSLC a little bit more complex. So with IBM stuff, yeah, it's always good to know where the manual is. And then more basic general resources. We have an ebook, Spatial Data for the Enterprise, available. We have the FME Academy, where you take structured lessons on learning FME and also get certified on your FME prowess. We have a knowledge base, which is better for sort of general information, and it's also, we have articles on how to do things. But we also have a community there we have a lot of stored pages. So if you've got a question, check on there. The question may already be asked and hopefully answered. And if it hasn't, you can type in your own question. We have a very active user community that just loves to answer your questions. So try them out. And finally, if that doesn't work, feel happy to contact us at Safe Support. And finally, we have a list of upcoming and on-demand webinars. So if you're looking for information on a certain topic, always check out our on-demand webinars, see if it's being covered, and then have a look at the upcoming webinars, see if there's anything that strikes your interest.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So in terms of next steps here, I can wrap us up here, Dave. As Dave had mentioned, do get in touch with us. We have info@safe.com as our inbox there. We're happy to help you get started with anything data and our FME Accelerator course. It's 90 minutes free of charge and a great place to learn the basics of FME. If you're a member of our community, we do have a badge code that you can redeem today. I'll drop that in the chat on the bottom right here. And just a reminder, so you'll have to be logged in to your community account to redeem the badge. And then you just scroll down and it's on the right side where you can plug that in, just as a thank you for joining us today. And if you aren't yet a member of the community, we encourage you to take a look. Yeah, just to reiterate what Dave said, it's a great place to network with other users and experts alike. Often there's a lot of forums. Someone might have just asked a question that you might be wondering and have just gotten a response to. So definitely check out our community. And with that, we do have, a few minutes here, over 10 minutes to look at questions together here. So I'll invite our presenting team, Gerry and Dave, to join me on the stage, and we can take a look through the questions together. Awesome. Okay, any questions in particular we wanted to get started with, team? It does look like we've gotten to most, if not all, but maybe this is also a good time to note, if you do have a question, we will keep things running a few minutes past when we've gotten to all of them. So feel free to still drop those in.
I guess we have one question open here. Basically, the question was, Trimble Connect or Autodesk BIM 360 has all of these functions, I guess mentioning the functions we mentioned, for import and much more. Why not use well-known solutions? Well, I'm biased because I work for SAFE, but I'm going to kick this over to Gerry, who's hopefully a little bit more objective on this.
Yeah, I responded to the question. I don't know if it came through, but not familiar. Well, not really sure what functions Thomas might be referring to, but remember that the client had very specific requirements of functionality. Therefore, that's what we had chosen ArcGIS Indoors, and the capabilities of being in the Esri ecosystem allowed us to do the extension. And by definition, the data was already in a spatial environment. Therefore, FME was the solution to help us bridge the gap between systems.
Okay, we have another question here. Says there seems to be two sets of transformers, SAS and not. Can you do the same things with these? And the question is, yeah. They're basically equivalent. The big difference is that the on-prem transformers use a login for the basic authentication, or LDAP. The SAS uses an API key that you can set up through the Maximo interface, the SAS interface that allows it to connect. I'm not sure if that's available on the on-premise Maximo. That's why we have the different login systems. But I try to keep both sets of transformers basically completely equal.
So
Awesome.
there's another question about, can you click a Maximo asset in ArcGIS Indoors? So it depends. Basically, for you to be able to have that bi-directional collaboration, the Maximo asset needs to exist in the BIM model and have a relational key that it's tying back to the Maximo asset. Otherwise, the communication's not going to exist.
Okay, I'm just giving a final scan through here. Yeah, any others that you see, Dave or Gerry, that you want to elaborate on? I think we've gotten to all now.
No, but I guess as a final message, it's kind of like, for a look, by looking at the poll, the big majority are in the early stages of exploring and planning. Keep in mind what I said before, that 70% of organizations fail. Become one of those that succeed.
Yeah, hopefully today, with the insights you've given Gerry and Dave, that will be a great step towards that. Okay. It looks like we have a new question from Jonathan. Dave, you might be able to help me out in if that's a good one to answer live here. Maybe we follow up.
I think that would be better for a follow-up. It's more of a support question. It's an interesting one, but it's basically in that environment. So we should probably work that out on an individual basis.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, Jonathan will be sure to shoot you an email after the webinar and get you supported with that question. All right. Well, with that, I just want to extend a huge thank you to Gerry for taking the time to join us today and prepare today's content. We really appreciate it. And Dave as well, thanks for your time in creating content and presenting the webinar with Gerry. And thank you to our whole audience for joining today and taking the time. We hope you got a lot of value out of today's webinar. If you do have a moment to fill out our webinar survey, we really appreciate any feedback. It helps us continue to improve our program. And with that, we hope you all have a great rest of your day. Like I mentioned, we will keep things running a couple minutes longer, so feel free to get any more questions in on the back end, and we'll stay on for a couple more minutes. All right, thank you so much, everyone, and bye for now.